And now your hosts, Christopher and Jenny, in Making Money with English.
Right. Welcome, everyone, to the very first deep dive. I am so pumped to be diving into some really interesting topics with you all.
Yeah, we all have that stack of papers, maybe some articles online, or even like notes scribbled everywhere, and it can be kind of overwhelming.
So think of this as like your one-stop shop to really break it all down.
We're going to distill it all down into something, manageable and clear and concise.
Exactly. And for our very first deep dive, we're going to be talking about something that, honestly, I think a lot of us are curious about, but maybe a little intimidated to even start learning about.
Yeah.
Which is your rights when dealing with ICE, U.S. immigration, and customs enforcement.
Yeah, and don't worry, we're going to be using this excerpt, Know Your Rights, Protecting Yourself Against ICE Enforcement, to kind of guide us.
Perfect. So before we even get started, just a quick reminder to, if you like what you hear, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And if you want to get a handy PDF summary of everything we talked about today, you can text phone number.
That's right.
And also, let us know what you'd like to hear more about, what other topics you'd like us to take a deep dive into.
Yeah, we love suggestions.
So, all right, let's dive in. This can be kind of a heavy topic, but knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we want to give you. A little more power with this knowledge. We're going to break it down and make it clear and concise and hopefully a little less intimidating.
Exactly. So first things first, what are our fundamental rights when it comes even interacting with ICE?
So no matter what your status is, everyone has the same rights that are, protected by the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
So one of the biggest ones is your Fifth Amendment right, which is your right to remain silent. So you don't have to answer any questions about your immigration status, your birthplace, how you entered the country, any of that.
Okay, so that seems pretty simple. Why is that so important?
Yeah. So it's really important because it protects you from self-incrimination.
Right. Okay.
Which, it's a legal concept that has very deep roots historically, going back centuries. Okay. The Fifth Amendment ensures that the burden of proof lies with the government, not with the individual.
Right. It makes sense. So it's not about being sneaky or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about asserting a fundamental legal protection.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this right has faced challenges throughout history, of course, especially during, times of heightened fear or political tension, but it's remained a cornerstone of our legal system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stay silent and make sure I state that intention clearly.
Exactly.
Got it. What else?
So another big one is your Fourth Amendment right, which protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Okay.
So that means IC officers can't just search you, your home, or your belongings without a warrant.
So they come knocking at my door.
Yeah.
Can I just say no?
You absolutely can, especially if they don't have a warrant. And this is where it gets kind of tricky.
Right.
ICE often uses something called administrative warrants, which are specifically forms I-200 or I-205.
Right.
But these are not enough to enter your home without your consent.
Okay.
They need what's called a judicial warrant, which is signed by a judge.
Ah, okay. So how can I tell if they have the right warrant?
Yeah, so have them slide the warrant under the door or show it to you through a window.
Right.
So you can actually look at it
Excellent.
before you even think about opening the door.
That's a really good tip. So it's all about being your own advocate, basically.
You have to be. And that also includes knowing your right to an attorney. But the government is not obligated to provide one for you in these cases.
Okay, gotcha.
That's why it's super important to have the contact info for an immigration lawyer, readily available.
Saved in my phone.
Yeah.
Just in case.
That's always a good idea, just in case.
Okay, so let's get into some real life scenarios. What if I'm just walking down the street, going about my day, and I get approached by ICE?
Okay. So first and foremost, stay calm.
Okay.
Which is obviously easier said than done, but it's important.
Yeah.
So stay calm and do not run.
Okay.
Because running can be misconstrued as you're trying to avoid arrest.
Resisting.
Yeah, and it could escalate things.
Gotcha.
So then you ask the key question, am I free to leave?
Okay.
And if they say yes, you can calmly walk away.
Okay. What if they say no?
Then you clearly state, I'm exercising my right to remain silent, and I want to speak to an attorney.
So it sounds like remaining silent and requesting a lawyer are the key things to remember.
Yeah, it's a theme, yeah.
It is.
And it's important to understand why. So by remaining silent, you're protecting yourself from potentially saying something that could incriminate you.
Right.
And by requesting a lawyer, you're making sure you have that legal representation, someone to guide you through this, very complex process.
Okay. So far, so good. Now, what if I'm not just walking down the street? What if I'm in my car
Yeah.
driving
Yeah.
and I get pulled over? And it turns out it's ICE. Maybe they're working with, like, local police or something?
Yeah. So same principles apply,
Okay.
even though it might feel a little more intense.
Right.
So you have to provide your driver's license, registration, insurance, all of that.
Okay.
But you do not have to answer any questions about your immigration status.
Okay.
And just like any other encounter, you can refuse a search of your vehicle unless they have probable cause or a warrant.
Right. Okay. So no matter where I am, if I'm walking down the street,
Yeah,
driving my car,
exactly.
same rights.
It's all about understanding those rights and asserting them, calmly and clearly.
Right. Okay. That's super helpful. Now, I know there's more to this, right?
Yeah.
What if IC actually comes to my home or I get arrested? Like, those are the scary ones.
Right. So we are going to get to all of that, but in part 2 of our deep dive,
Oh, okay.
we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have. And we're just getting started.
We'll be back in just a bit to continue exploring all of this. So stay with us.
Hey, thanks for being here with Making Money with English. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. So last time we were talking about asserting your rights in public or during traffic stops.
Right.
But what happens if ICE comes knocking at your door?
Yeah, that's the one that gets me. Like, just thinking about it, I get chills.
It's definitely an intimidating scenario, and understandably so.
Yeah.
ICE often conducts these home raids kind of as a part of, their strategy.
Right.
But the good news is they can't just, barge into your house.
No? Okay, good. So if I hear that knock on the door,
Right.
and I think it might be ICE,
Yeah.
what should I do?
Don't open the door. And remember those 2 different types of warrants we talked about?
Right, the administrative and the judicial.
Yes.
Yes.
Judicial warrant, the one signed by a judge, that's the one that allows them to enter your home
Okay,
without your consent.
gotcha.
So if they have that Form I-200 or I-205, that administrative warrant,
Right.
it's not enough.
So how can I be sure which one they have? Do we have to open the door?
You absolutely do not ask them to slide it under the door or show it to you through a window.
Okay.
So you can verify that it's a judicial warrant.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Good.
But what if they do get in, illegally?
So if they force their way in without a valid warrant or your consent, very clearly and firmly state, I do not consent to this search.
Like, it's a magic phrase?
It's not magic,
Yeah.
but it is an important assertion of your rights.
Gotcha.
And it's also super important to document the encounter if your state allows it.
Okay.
Use your phone to record a video, take some audio
Okay.
to, provide evidence of any potential rights violations.
That's good to know. It seems like having this knowledge really can,
Yeah.
shift things in your favor
Uh.
a little bit.
That's the whole point. Knowledge is power, especially when you're dealing with law enforcement.
Right.
Now let's talk about what happens if you are arrested by ICE, which is obviously the most serious scenario.
Yeah, this is what I'm, nervous to hear about.
It is, but it's important. And it's where knowing your rights really becomes super important.
Okay.
So first and foremost, do not resist arrest.
Okay.
Even if you think it's unfair or your rights are being violated.
Right.
Resisting arrest will only lead to additional charges and
Yeah.
make the whole situation more complicated.
Gotcha. So comply.
Comply, and then you can, fight it legally later
Right.
with the help of an attorney.
Okay.
Mm.
Speaking of attorney, you said this earlier, but
Yeah.
it's worth repeating. Don't sign anything without talking to a lawyer.
Please. ICE will likely try to pressure you into signing stuff, especially these voluntary departure forms.
Okay, we've mentioned that a couple of times. What is that?
So basically, a voluntary departure form,
Okay.
it basically means you're waiving your right to a hearing
Okay.
and agreeing to leave the country, which can lead to, you being barred from returning to the U.S. for much longer.
Wow.
It's not something to do lightly.
So if they ask me to sign anything, red flag.
Red flag.
Ask for a lawyer.
Yes. And you have the right to make a phone call. So
Okay.
if you can, call your family, trusted friend, or a legal aid organization.
So it sounds like, again, preparation.
Preparation is key.
Like having those numbers memorized
Absolutely.
in case they take your phone.
You got it. It can make a huge difference. Okay, so let's say you're not the one being, targeted by ICE.
Right.
But you see a raid happening or you witness an arrest.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah, what can you do?
Tough situation to be in. So it's important to know that you shouldn't physically interfere with the arrest.
Okay.
Could get you in trouble.
No superhero stuff.
No superhero stuff. But you can be a witness.
Okay.
Observe and document what is happening.
So, like, take notes?
Yeah, take notes.
Record it if I can?
If it's legal in your state, yes.
Sorry.
That footage could be really valuable.
Okay.
Get any badge numbers, names of officers, just details.
Okay, so even though I can't, like, physically stop anything,
Yeah.
I can still document it.
Document.
Hold them accountable.
Exactly. And maybe the most important thing you can do in that moment is try to connect the person who's being detained with legal resources.
Right, because there are organizations out there that can help.
Yes. And knowing how to connect them to those resources can be a huge, huge help.
Right. Okay, so we talked about, like, preparing ourselves,
Yes.
knowing our rights,
Yes.
supporting our communities. I feel like we've, like, barely even scratched the surface.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
There's so much more.
But the key takeaway here is to be prepared. Having a plan and knowing your rights can really help you navigate these difficult situations.
So, like, what are some things that listeners can do to be more prepared?
So creating an emergency plan is a good place to start. Think about who would take care of your kids, your pets, or other responsibilities if you were detained.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook those things.
Yeah.
But having that plan can bring a lot of peace of mind.
Okay.
And of course, make sure you and your loved ones have those vital phone numbers memorized, like we said, attorney, a trusted friend, family member.
Yeah.
Another good idea is to carry one of those, like, know your rights cards.
Right. Okay.
A lot of organizations provide them. And it basically lays out, like, your rights.
Easy to understand.
Yeah, easy to understand. And you can just show that instead of speaking.
That's good. Because in the moment, it's hard to remember everything perfectly.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It can be helpful to have that tangible thing. And finally, if you are undocumented, consult with an immigration lawyer
Okay.
to figure out your legal options.
All right. So those are some really helpful tips. Now, we've talked about, like, preparing ourselves, knowing our rights, but we also talked about, like, community.
Yeah.
How can we, like, advocate for each other and for, like, immigrant rights?
Yeah, that's such an important point because
Oopsie.
we're not in this alone. Right. We need to support each other, share this knowledge, stand up for our collective rights. That's what's going to make a difference.
Right. Because thinking about facing, like, ICE alone is terrifying.
Yeah,
But knowing that there's, like, a community is really powerful.
it is. And there are so many ways to get involved, support the movement, volunteer with some organizations, donate to legal defense funds, even just educate yourself, educate others.
Right.
All of that stuff has a ripple effect.
Okay, cool. So we've covered a lot today, from understanding our basic rights to knowing what to do in those specific situations.
It is a lot. But remember, be prepared.
Be prepared.
Have that plan. Know your rights. That's how you're going to make this whole thing less scary.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us on this first deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you learned a lot and feel ready to, spread this knowledge.
It's been a pleasure talking about this with you.
Absolutely. And don't forget, this was only part 1. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss part 2, where we're going to be going over some real-life examples and case studies to make all of this even more actionable. And if you want to get that PDF summary of everything we talked about today, you can text phone number.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. And, if there are any other topics you'd like us to dive into, let us know.
Yeah, leave us a comment. Let us know what you're curious about. We might even feature your idea on a future episode. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.
My dear students, I have a photographic memory. Just forgot to load the film.
I know the professor is horrible on jokes, but one thing that is not a joke is to forget your rights when you need it here in the United States. From the bottom of our hearts here on Making Money with English podcast, please get the free digital copy by clicking on our BIO and find the link for Know Your Rights card. Get it, share it, and protect your rights. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for listening Making Money with English with your hosts Christopher and Jenny. Until the next time, keep learning English and keep making money.